Hey guys, it's Alex Torelli. Welcome back to an episode of Ask Alec. Thank you guys for being here today. I'm really excited. I got a new guest on the show, Anderson. We're going to have a cool conversation. He's in a really interesting spot that I think a lot of you are going to relate to. Anderson, what's up, my man?
Thanks hey, what's up, Alec? How you doing?
Hey, man. What's up? So tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, man. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. So I'm originally from Colombia. I started playing poker back in 2010. And I've been playing seriously for about a year. It's about 2 years ago, I got a job as a poker dealer. So I became real involved in the poker world. So I started to take my game very seriously. I started taking training videos, buying workshops, and I started putting in some real work to improve my game. And in August last year, I decided that I was going to do it. I was going to go for it. I had already saved up some money for it. And I played for about 5 months. I put 500 hours in those 5 months.
Wow. Good for you.
I made something like just under $12,000 playing mostly 1-2. So I think it was pretty decent. It was definitely a good start.
Yeah.
But the real problem was my financial situation. After a while, I realized that I wasn't saving as much money as I could. Most of my money was going to life expenses. I have to take care of my mother. And, I realized that maybe the structure that I had was not putting me in a situation where I could succeed. So I decided that I had to take a different approach. And that's what I wanted to ask you. What do you think is the best line of action to take in my situation? And also, do you think it's a good idea to stop playing for a while and try to build my bankroll again? Or should I actually double down on the hours and trying to grind the money like that?
So you told me in your email that you also have your driving. You have a job with Lyft. Is that still correct?
Yeah, that's what I've been doing for the past month.
Okay. So how's that going? Does that make enough to pay for the bills on its own, plus give you extra money to save and
I'm making just enough to pay the bills right now.
Okay. Do you have time?
Yeah, I do have a lot of time.
Okay. So you're making just enough to pay the bills. So if you can have money aside that's just for poker that doesn't conflict with your responsibilities. First of all, respect for taking care of your mom. That's awesome. I think that's great. You obviously, have your priorities in line with, putting poker on the side to take care of family and your priorities and stuff. So respect for that. But if you can do something where you have this job that's paying for the bills and keeps you afloat, even putting a little bit of money away on the side and then using your poker bankroll that's already existent to try and grow it, then I don't really see it as a big risk, because even if the worst case scenario happens and you lose in poker, which unfortunately has been happening recently, if you lose at poker, you're not putting yourself in a compromising spot or taking away responsibility from your everyday situation, because that money is coming from a separate place. So is that feasible to do at this point?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I've been trying to do. But I've seen in one of your videos where you talk about bankroll management. You advise people to have something like 6 months worth of living expenses
plus your
bankroll. And I'm actually not there right now. So that's why I'm not sure what I should do.
Okay. So, you can't always have, that's an ideal scenario, right? But sometimes you got to start before you're at an ideal spot, right? So you have to work up to that. So why I say you should have 6 months, it's one of those things that if you're constructing your situation and you can afford to do it, it would be ideal to set away that money ahead of time so that, you have absolutely no pressure on your situation, especially for people that are going to go full on play poker professionally. It's one thing if you have a job that supplements your income, because even if you lose your poker bankroll, your job is still paying for your lifestyle. So you're not really taking that much risk if you don't have 6 months of living expenses set aside, because you have that stable job there that you're not going to lose, and it's paying for your expenses. It's taking care of everything you need in your life anyway. So the poker is kind of like a free roll in your situation. Is that right?
Yeah, sure. But that was something that I wanted to do full time. It was my only source of income for the last.
Right. So I think that should be the goal. The goal should be, okay, I'm able to play poker full time. I can quit that job at Lyft if you need to. But that's something to do responsibly. You do have commitments with your family. You're taking care of yourself. You're trying to work to save money on the side and get ahead. So if you're going to do, if and when it's time to take that step and say, now I'm going to quit poker and play full time, fine. I think you should do two things. One is you should prove to yourself that you're capable of doing it. And that means winning in poker on the side. So work with what you have. Like, why quit the job and put that pressure or leverage on your situation when you can just keep the job and play 20 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week? And you're going to grow half as fast, but you can still grow. You can test drive the car before you buy it. And that's what I think is really smart to do in your situation, especially when you have responsibility. So I would say, let's say your poker bankroll is 5K. All right, I'm going to start with this 5K that I have on the side. You start with that 5K, you work that 5K up until you have 6 months of living expenses set aside. So whatever that is, you have 6 months of that set aside, and you still have your poker bankroll. Then you're like, okay, now I'm comfortable quitting my job because I am responsible. I have my money set aside. I can pay for my mom. My shit's in order. Worst case scenario, if I lose money, I can go back to driving for Lyft within that 6 months, but I'm safe. I have at least 3 months of living set aside, ideally 6. And second, I've proven to myself that I can actually earn money playing poker because I've done it. I've done it on the side. Imagine if I go all in and dedicate my free time to studying, of course I'm going to get better. So I think proving to yourself that you could do it now makes a lot of sense. And you're young. What are you, like 23 or something?
25.
25? I mean, shit, you're so much time, just be patient. Like, even if it takes you 2 years, you're still 4 years, 3 years younger than me, like whatever. You don't have to win tomorrow, like you don't have to like reach the finish line tomorrow. Just take it slow. One thing I would recommend you doing is go to alectrelli.com, download my financial planner, which is free.
Oh, you know you have that.
Yeah, it will help you for poker, but it'll help you track all your living expenses and your finances and put it all into one place, and then structure your goals accordingly to your finances to make sure that you're utilizing your living expenses in the best way possible, and then you're not wasting money. I'm not sure like how resourceful you're being with your current living expenses. If you can shave off, even 20%, that goes a long way. And it depends where your money is going.
That too.
Sorry?
I wasn't like really diligent with tracking my expenses, so I think it was a little bit of that too.
Dude, what gets measured gets managed. That's one of the great quotes I heard in applying to finances. And honestly, like I've never gone through this exercise with a student or a client or anyone that's done this financial exercise and that wasn't already tracking their expenses. The people that weren't already tracking their expenses that do this always find ways that they can cut things out, even shave off 10, 20%. But that adds up. That's a lot. If you shave 10, 20%, you add that to your poker bankroll 3 or 6 months down the line, you've doubled your bankroll, right? Almost, depending on what it is, depending on how much money you're adding aside, So that's huge. So I recommend downloading that. It's free. That'll help you. But just the process of tracking your expenses in and of itself will help a ton.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a wake-up call.
Yeah, for sure. And just having some sort of accountability, like a friend to do this with, or your family to do it with, or something like that, where someone's kind of holding you accountable through this process that is helping you take action is, I think, really going to help you as well.
Well, also one thing that I wanted to know, do you think 500 hours is enough to define your win rate?
That's a great question. So I understand that's a concern for sure when you're playing poker professionally, or you're wanting to take that step and play poker professionally. It's like, how do you measure your win rate and your long-term, how do you plan for your future based on your past results? So 500 hours is a good amount of time. If you figure that you're going to play, that's like full time for 3 months, basically. If you play 40 hours a week, that's basically full time for 3 months. That's a good amount of time. I mean, that sample is not going to necessarily be the long term, but it's going to be pretty accurate, especially in live poker. Like online poker, that's like nothing because the edges are a lot smaller. But in live poker, where the edges are a lot bigger, if you're playing the same size game for those entire 500 hours, you're going to have a good idea of what you can expect. Like you shouldn't be losing after 500 hours. You were winning, right? After 500 hours?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I think a good win rate is something like 10 big blinds per hour. So if you're playing 2-5 and winning $50 an hour, that's good. And when your win rate is that big, the variance is a lot smaller. So the math says that you're not going to have as much variance because your edge is so big that you don't have to wait 6 months or a year to compensate for that edge. So I think, winning at 10 big blinds per hour is doable. Even more is doable, but 10 big blinds is a good place to aspire to. And if you're winning at that win rate, you're not going to worry that much about variance just because it's not going to be that big. If you're playing full time, you're not going to have that many losing months just because variance isn't that big when you're winning that much. So that's why it would help to get you back to playing full time, because of course you're actually going to have less variance, but you have to do it responsibly. And even if you're putting in, how many hours a week can you play now in this current schedule? 15?
I've been playing like 25 on average.
That's plenty. I mean, that's plenty. You play as much as some pros, like, just to be honest, like you're playing 4 days a week, 3 days a week. That's enough. Like, honestly, like some pros I know don't want to play more than that because they get burnt out and they like to have balance. So even if you didn't have a job, you might find that your ideal scenario is not to even play more than that to begin with, just because you don't have as much balance in your life that you want. So
what I was doing is that I was playing almost every day, but I was playing between 3 and 5 hours every day.
Yeah, I love that. Like if I'm going to play full time, I mean, it's different when I was starting out, when I was in my, teens and young 20s, I could play 60, 70, 80 hours a week, no problem. When I started going to Macau and I started playing more and more, I would sometimes have shorter sessions, but sometimes I would have, like 20-hour sessions just because that was the nature of the game. But then I would have days off, so I would have like, I'd play like 5 days a week, which for a poker player sounds like a little bit of that, like not that much. Mm-hmm. But, I would need to have that balance as I got, like progressing throughout my career. I would need more and more balance to feel like I could play my A game for as many hours as possible. So 25 hours a week is a little on the light side. You're going to probably want to extend that to 30, 35, 40 or something long term. But I mean, whatever. If you have to, I would keep Lyft going. I would do things in order. First, I would track all my expenses for 2 weeks and figure out exactly what my expenses are down to fucking $10. And then I would drive for Lyft, make the amount of money I need to pay for my expenses plus save 20%. So that no matter what happens in poker, you're paying for expenses, you're taking care of family, you're saving 20%. You put that towards your retirement. You're being fiscally responsible. So you have a retirement plan, you have everything set up so that no matter what happens in poker, you have an income, a salary, and a future that's secure. Then what I would do is with whatever is left over, with whatever time is left over, whatever money is left over, I would play poker and try and run it up.
Sounds great, man. I really appreciate the advice. Definitely gonna do that. And one last thing that I wanted to ask you is,
let's do it.
How do you train yourself to stay focused in every session and play longer hours?
Good question. I mean, so if you're trying to increase your amount of quality hours, some people just do quality over quantity, but if you're trying to increase your quality amount of hours, I think two or three things are going to really help you. One is the main thing is your overall lifestyle. So, and that's comprised of a few different things. It's comprised of your sleep. It's comprised of your diet. It's comprised of your exercise. So eating, I think the most important thing is probably eating a really, really clean diet in terms of how you perform. And so cutting out sugar, like not having a lot of caffeine, not relying on just drinking water and green tea, not even having that much caffeine when you play, not being dependent on it, not having any refined sugar in your diet, not having too many, like even grains and stuff, like just having low glycemic foods so that you don't have like a ton of insulin spikes. You don't feel like you crash after a huge meal at the table. You don't want to have like really heavy meals because then you get tired, your body has to digest that food. You want to have like sometimes I have like even more liquid style of diets when I'm playing because it's easier to concentrate. Those sorts of things really, really help me in terms of longevity at the table, like eating a lot of vegetables, light fruits, stuff like that really helps. That's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed has made a huge impact in my game is diet. The second thing is exercise. I like to do like high intensity interval training, cardio training, which really helps with stamina. So anytime you're doing intervals, it helps with your body's stamina. And so that really helps when I was playing, 20, 24-hour sessions in Macau where, I do 30 to 45 minutes of interval training on a daily basis so that my body was just conditioned to go long hours, start, stop, and just really train myself to do that at a high level. And so I pushed myself hard in the gym and that really helped me. I was in very good physical shape, like an athlete would be to perform at the highest levels for the longest amount of time. And then, sleep's really important, like getting 8 hours a night, being on a regular sleep cycle. That really helps. I think poker makes it hard to do that because people are inclined to stay up till 4 a.m. and stuff. And, I was doing that too in Macau when I had to because, the incentive was there and the games were so big and that was what it was required to win at the highest levels. But I think in all things being equal, given that you can choose when and where you play, I would choose a normal sleep cycle as much as I could. Hope that helps. Yeah,
it does for sure.
Awesome, man. You're going to be fine. I'm confident.
I'm going for it. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm committed to this. So.
Yeah, I think driving for Lyft is smart. That gives you a lot of flexibility. You can control your time. I heard they pay pretty well too. It seems like a great accompaniment job to poker. Low barrier to entry. You could get started right away, be flexible. You could start and stop, quit when you want, come back. It just seems really smart to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you, man. All right. Thanks for joining. I hope you crush.
All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye. Guys, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you guys want to be on the show, head over to consciouspoker.com, click on contact, and you can submit a question, and I'll pick the best ones and feature you guys here on the channel in future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are all awesome. Subscribe to my channel for more awesome content coming your way, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.